Geeks with Beards. Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a special episode. This is our 25th episode of the Geeks with Beards podcast. And just in case we got any new listeners out there, and even our old listeners, if you forgot who we are and what we do, we are the Geeks with Beards podcast. I'm Dan with my co-host Sean, and we cover comic books from all different eras, from the golden era to the modern era. And we also do movies and all games and just all kinds of cool stuff. But we mainly cover comic books. We have a YouTube channel that does toy reviews. So yeah, we hope we got some new listeners out there, and we hope we get to gain some more in the next 25 episodes. But before we jump into it, what's been going on with you, man, since last time?
Well, first of all, I can't believe we're at 25.
I can't either, man. Oh, we're almost at our year anniversary. I think we're like a month away from our year anniversary.
That's like 25 more than I thought we were going to do.
Well, I mean, everybody I hear, they say most independent podcasts go like 10 episodes and then they just give up.
Woo woo!
I'm like, fuck yeah, we made it 25, and we're going to make it hopefully as long as we can make it. Hopefully we'll do 25 more at least, if not more.
Dan, we're old. So
yeah, we are old. It's true.
If we can make it to 32, we're good.
Hell yeah, man.
All right, so what I've been up to lately is I went and seen Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, how was that?
Disappointing.
Okay.
The story, they tried to recreate it, but they left out a lot of things. I don't want to spoil it in case people go watch it, but my personal opinion, they took out some of the wrong things, and then it didn't flow right.
Didn't flow.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue.
Okay. Any cool shows for your band been happening recently?
Oh, yeah, we've been playing the shit out of shows. We just had our 5th show this month.
Hell yeah.
So we're going to take a break and, getting ready to go on a big trip. That's why we're recording early.
Vacation!
Going to go to Washington, D.C., going to hit up Philadelphia, go to Boston, go to Salem, and then end up in New York. So we're going to see what kind of cool shit we can get into.
Hell yeah, man. Hitting that northeast section right now.
Yeah, we've been to the other corners. It's time for that one.
Time for that one.
We're coming for you. Been playing some Atari games.
Sweet.
Yep, that's it for me.
That's it for you.
What you been up to?
Well, let's see. I finally watched that movie you recommended, Repo, the Genetic Opera.
Yes.
I enjoyed it.
Yes.
I liked it. Yeah, I mean, kick Paris Hilton's ass out of it. It'd be better.
Hey,
but
it was the time frame, all right?
I liked it. And it wasn't hard to follow. I know you mentioned that it was similar to Rocky Horror. Yeah, but definitely more singing. I was expecting a little bit more like regular dialogue with the singing thrown in there.
I can see that.
But I didn't hate it, though. Actually, I did. I liked it. And like I said, the story was really good. Most of the actors I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Bless them. Some of them didn't need to sing, but, you know, come from somebody who can't sing, I can say that. I think my favorite, as far as the singing goes, was, I can't think of his name, but he played Giles in Buffy.
Yes.
Because I remember him singing in that episode of Buffy years and years ago. And he plays, if you don't know, I'll spoil it for you, he plays the titular Repo Man, and he does some great singing, I think. So, and I just love him when he plays these darker roles, because he has that face that they get on camera, and he just looks like he is one scary son of a gun. You know, he can play it off being real nice, Giles kind of character. Even Giles was a nasty kind of character. He even had a dark background too. But, yeah, no, I love it. It's on Freevee. If anybody wants to check it out, it's on Freevee. And there is a second movie that came out by the same people. It's not a sequel, I don't believe at all, but it's a similar thing. It's a musical, and it's called The Devil's Circus or The Devil's Carnival. I forget which one it is specifically. It's almost this, well, I can't say the same cast, but I know the guy that was in Repo who does the Zydrite, the going around getting that, he plays the devil, I think, in the other film.
Devil's Carnival.
Devil's Carnival, okay. And it's on Tubi. I haven't watched it yet, but I heard it was equally as good, if not just a tad bit better. So I like it. Give it a shot when I get time to. Other than that, I've watched some James Bond. I bought the Blu-ray box set at Walmart a couple weeks back. I've been watching some old James Bond movies. And one thing I want to recommend to Sean and to our audience, if you haven't seen it yet, it's on HBO Max. It's a 2-episode documentary, Pee-wee as himself, about Paul Rubens. It's 2 episodes. Each episode is about an hour and 40 minutes long.
Ooh, I need to watch this.
Yeah, it's really good. The first episode basically covers his beginnings up to the creation of Pee-wee, and then the second episode is Pee-wee, his legal troubles, and life afterwards.
Okay.
The second episode, for me, it touched some heartstrings. Well, both of them really do, because I've read previously before watching this, he was a very private kind of person, you know, and I think this was hard for him to even do this documentary. You kind of see that when you're watching it. You kind of see like he's kind of reserved a little bit when he's talking to the guy that's interviewing him. But I definitely recommend it. Yeah, it's on HBO Max. Pee-wee as himself. It's really good. It's really good. But other than that, that's been about it. Comic book wise, not much to mention. Real brief, I'm going to mention Transformers real quick. I got the newest issue of Transformers. It was funny. Megatron's there. He rebuilds Starscream, gives him his legs back, a new body and everything, just to whoop his ass, to teach him a lesson.
It's all right, man.
And then Megatron transforms, and forces Starscream to basically almost kill, if not kill, Astro Train, because Astro Train has got a beef against Megatron, which they have yet to flush out why. But him and Megatron fight for a minute briefly. Megatron kind of gets the best of him, transforms to gun mode, Starscream blasts Astro Train. I got several other books, but that's the one that mostly stood out because Megatron just rebuilds Starscream. Starscream's like, yeah, new body. Bam. Get your ass whooped. Starscream's like, okay, I promise I'll never turn against you again. I'll never do it again. So, but yeah, that's been about it, man, since last time.
I forgot something.
Yeah, man.
My wife bought the Sailor Moon series.
Yeah, you told me that at work. Yeah. How's that been?
The Ditko episodes, like the ones we grew up with. It's kind of crazy going back to after all these years.
Okay.
But it's been good. Like, we've been watching an episode a day, like, as we're eating or whatever.
Now, are these they wouldn't be like the original, like, Japanese... I know you said they're the dubbed ones, but I mean, these are, I guess, the edited as well as far as content goes. Because I want to say in Japan, like, it was a little bit more mature.
It was,
content.
yeah.
So these are just the straight.
Like when she transforms, they remove, like, the lines on her body and stuff like that.
Okay, so this is just the straight American DK. Okay, it's still cool. I mean, that's still fine as far as that goes, yeah.
Because, like, when we first started dating, she told me about the show, so I started recording them on VHS tapes, like, before school and put them all together for her, but... It's really cool not having to go back to VHS tapes.
Well, it is. It is. I agree on that one. But hell yeah, I know of Sailor Moon. I've caught clips here and there, but I've actually never watched the show.
Well, you can't really stream these anymore, this version of it, because on the Hulu ones, they got the new voice actors to redub these.
Got you. So are these kind of an out-of-print situation?
Yeah, because the ones I got, I guess they're custom, like, offhand.
Somebody maybe... Okay, yeah.
And they did a good job. Like the artwork, the cases, it's pretty good, and the quality of the video is actually pretty decent. I've only noticed like a hiccup here or there, and like nothing.
It could be just like a straight maybe DVD rip they done or something. Maybe
could be.
Because I had somebody do me a DVD rip of the Cowboy Bebop anime series, and it's freaking flawless. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Even the menus work on it. I'm just like, okay. I'm like, okay, sweet.
That's cool.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
All right then, guys, we're going to jump into our 25th episode, and today we will be covering Amazing Fantasy number 15, Spider-Man's first appearance. And Sean, do you have a little history for us on this, or do you want to go through it first and then come at that later?
Yeah, let's go through some history.
All right, sweet.
So on our X-Men episode, I touched on Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Sure did.
So I'm not going to touch on much of Stan Lee in this one. We're going to focus on Steve Ditko, the artist.
Hell yeah.
All right. And he's an interesting fellow because everybody says he was a recluse and he didn't do this and do that. He just didn't like being in the spotlight.
Got you.
Like, he didn't just shut himself at home or anything like that. He still had family. And
he's like, just let me do my job, and I don't need the glitz and glamour.
Actually, that's exactly. He said, my art speaks for itself.
I agree.
Much.
I agree.
So there's only one interview type of thing where people just send in questions and he just kind of wrote his answers.
Okay.
He would answer emails and that kind of stuff, you know. But anyway, he broke into comics in 1953 after serving in World War II. Like, he joined right after the atom bomb was dropped.
Oh, okay.
So he was very late in the war.
I was going to say it's toward the tail end of it, yeah.
But while he was over there, he started getting into photography and started taking pictures. There's like hundreds of pictures he took, like over in Germany post-war and all this stuff.
Okay.
He's never flown or drove a car.
Okay.
Up until he died in 2018.
Okay.
At some point, he developed tuberculosis, but he never like showed any signs or any like. Only his family knew. So the way the biggest controversy with him is he disagrees with how Stan Lee takes credit for Spider-Man.
Okay.
And his reason is that the way Stan Lee put on there that he's the writer, he was in charge of the scripts and all this stuff.
Yeah.
He said his disagreement with that is because Stan Lee, they would plot out the issue and there'd be like a page of script. Mm-hmm. In his eyes, like if you're writing the script, you're writing it page by page, panel by panel.
Okay.
Like a full-on like movie script.
Yeah.
That's the controversy there. And he's like, he didn't even mention this until like a few years before he died because he wasn't like that hard pressed to talk about it.
Right.
All right. So as far as how we got Spider-Man, according to Stan Lee, he was asked to make another hero after the Fantastic Four, maybe the X-Men. Mm-hmm. He wasn't sure what order. We could look it up. I think we've already discussed this.
Yeah.
And he wanted the first thing he always starts with is a superpower. Mm-hmm. So he's looking around the room and there was a fly crawling on the wall. He's like, that's it. I want something that crawls.
Flyman.
That was the first thing he said. He's like, it's got to be something bug related. So Flyman, Mosquito Man. And he's like, none of those work. And then he finally got down to Spider-Man. He said he settled on that because it sounded dramatic.
Okay, I can see that.
All right.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
All right. So his next task is he's like, all right, so I got to develop the person, and he's like, I'll make him a teenager because there weren't many, if at all, any teenager superheroes like the main character.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and he wanted him to have real world problems, not like superhero problems.
I can see that, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Definitely make it more relatable to the readers.
Yes. And if you look at the artwork, a lot of people have said this. Like, I watched interviews with Steve Ditko's family, and they said, that is Steve Ditko. Oh. The way he drew him, the way he acts, because, you know, the nerdiness and all this other stuff. So Stan Lee takes this idea to the publishers. They're like, we hate it. It's stupid. So he shelves it. Okay, so this comic we're about to cover, it was supposed to be the last issue of this run. Okay. And Stan Lee's like, well, on the last issue, nobody cares what happens.
So I'm just going to put it in here.
I'm going to put him on the cover.
Yeah.
I'm going to put him as the first story in it, and then nobody will care.
Yeah.
Well, a month later, the sales come back. The publisher's like, you know that character we both love? Let's give him his own series.
Yeah, we love him now.
So that's how Spider-Man came to be.
Okay.
And the way they would do the Stan Lee method, I'm not sure if we talked about this on X-Men or not.
I don't remember 100%.
And this kind of goes into Ditko's thing about credit and all this other stuff. So Stan Lee would plot the story together. He would come up with like a page of script, and then Steve would come up with everything else.
Okay.
Like the people, what they look like, how the story progressed.
So it sounds like Stan just kind of gave him an outline of what he wanted the comic or each issue to be, and Ditko was the one that put more detail into it.
Yes.
Kind of.
And I want to say Jack Kirby says something similar, and that's what everybody refers to as the Stan Lee method. So
okay.
Stan Lee would just go in and fill in the dialogue of what he thinks is happening. And
so he's not like really hating on Stan. He's just saying, hey, look, Stan's saying he did more than he actually did.
Yes, that's 100% what he was saying.
I mean, yeah, people's going to embellish themselves. I mean, it happens, but
and you know how
still love him, rest in peace, still love old Stan Lee. So.
Yeah, and there's like a lot of people say Stan took more, like he was just taking other people's ideas and just fronting it. Well, it's just because he's charismatic and he was doing the interviews and...
Yeah. I mean, somebody has to be out there and be the voice, the face of a character that's being created, whether it's by two people or one person or whatever.
Yeah.
And like you said, Ditko didn't like doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he was the man who was behind the character as far as artistic and story wise and stuff, and Stan was the public face.
Yes.
Of the character, getting it out there to the public, whatever. So
that would be it.
I get that, yeah. So I don't guess there was any bad blood. It was just disagreements, I guess, probably.
Yeah, just kind of little irks, like, no, that's not how this works.
It's like, look, Stan, change your script.
Yeah. Stan, if you're going to write a script, write a script.
Write a script, damn it.
But yeah, that's all I've got for history.
All right, man. Hell yeah. So, all right, we're going to jump into this Amazing Fantasy number 15. And we open up to some teenagers. They're talking about a dance that they're going to have at the local high school. And one of the teenagers, and none of them are named, at least not in this book, the other teenager's like, hey, we need like one more person to go to this dance. And they're like, hey, what about Peter Parker? And one of the other kids is like, Peter? No, not that bookworm. He's too boring. He wouldn't know the cha-cha from the waltz. Now, none of our listeners know what those are. Those are older dances that were going on in the 60s. Because this was 63, 4?
Should be 63, I believe.
Okay. So these were dances that were popular like in the 50s and 60s. If our younger listeners don't know what they are, ask your parents. They probably know. So after that, we
62.
62. Okay. Hell yeah. So the next morning, we get to actually see Uncle Ben and Aunt May for the first time. This is the first time I believe these characters were ever shown. Sweet little old grandpa, grandma looking characters, white hair, little old wrinkles on their faces and everything. Uncle Ben's going to wake Peter up for school. And he's like, hey, Pete, you can't fool me. I know you're awake. Get up. Come on. It's time to go to school. And, gets him downstairs, goes to the kitchen, and Aunt May says she's made him wheat cakes. Now, I didn't look this up. I'm assuming they're different than pancakes. I don't know. I should have looked it up, but I didn't. But she says, I made you some wheat cakes. They look like pancakes in the artwork to me. So they have a little family moment there for a minute. Then we go to the high school and get a little kind of a couple of different panels, like a montage kind of thing. And one of his teachers, like a professor, he tells him, he's like, hey, man, he's like, keep up the good work, Peter. He said, you could rate a scholarship when you graduate. Just keep up that good work. So we already get introduced, because we know throughout Spider-Man he is a really intelligent person. I don't know if he's Tony Stark intelligent, but he's quite an intelligent kid.
Well, he's very scientific and like bookwormish, like you described earlier.
Yeah.
And when I was talking about Steve Ditko earlier, that's one of his qualities. Like he would do fingerprinting as a kid.
Oh.
And he'd have like the boiling like chemical stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. Like the beakers and all that stuff like that. Hell yeah, sweet. So, Peter, he's real happy with himself to hear that the teachers have that much kind of confidence in him. Then later on, after school, Peter asks a girl named Sally if she would if she's busy later that day, and if she'd like to go see an exhibit with him later. And she actually cuts him off before he can actually finish his question. And she's like, Pete, I have told you and told you and told you, you're not my type.
Yeah.
Why would I go out with somebody like you when that hunk of Flash Thompson is standing right over there? Flash is kind of flexing or whatever, Poor Petey, and Sally's over kind of feeling on those muscles. I'm like, Flash Thompson. I was like, you'll become a great Venom decades later, but at this moment, no.
It's amazing how many characters are in this.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's
Little
quite a
tiny
bit.
issue.
Yeah. So after that, he then asked a group of classmates if they would like to go see an exhibit at the science hall later. And, of course, they're not going to, you know, it doesn't show it, but I'm assuming they might be jocks or just, you know, not scientific, you know, kids. And they basically kind of have a little bit of an attitude with him. And they say, hey, look, you stick to the science and we'll stick to the chicks. So, and Peter gets mad. He walks away and Ditko or Stan, whichever one did the word bubbles, puts in there the word sobbing. So he's actually crying. He's actually upset. And this is when I'm like, Peter had a little bit of a villain moment here for a second, because you see it on there, and then he says, he's like, one day they'll be sorry. They'll be sorry that they ever laughed at me, that they made fun of me. I'm like, whoa, Peter. Whoa, Peter.
Yeah, this is like revengeful almost.
So I'm guessing this is not the first time he's been bullied or made fun of, because it probably happens now, but definitely you can see it at this moment here. And even when I was growing up in the 80s, you see it in TV and movies that nerds, bookworms were ridiculed, made fun of, you know.
So that's probably true up until the mid-90s at least.
Hell, dude, it may still be true now. I don't know, honestly. But yeah, Peter has that kind of that villain moment for more. He's like, I'll get him back. I was like, chill, Pete, chill. So he goes to the exhibit, and it's got to do with radioactivity. And we all know it's a classic moment. It's a classic scene, but he's watching these scientists, professors do an experiment with radioactive rays, and nobody pays attention or sees this little spider coming down from the ceiling on a little thin thread of webbing. And unfortunately it gets caught between these two like electrodes, these two orbs that are shooting the radioactivity back and forth between them. And it says in the comic that it absorbs a fantastic amount of radioactivity. Stan's like, fantastic amount.
Gotta throw that in there.
Gotta throw it in there, man. And right before the spider dies, it bites Peter on the hand. And I can't remember in other versions, I think it bites him on the top of the hand, right? Because in this one here, it shows first the top, and then he opens his palm because he's holding the spider. So I don't.
In the Tobey Maguire one, yes, I don't remember the other ones.
I don't remember either. So, but it is on his hand. He does get bit on the hand, and he looks at the spiders in the palm of his hand, and he's like, oh. He's like, my hand. He's like, it's burning a little bit, and he's like, why is the spider glowing for? He's like, why is it glowing? And so he starts feeling a little sick, a little weird. You know, he didn't feel himself right now. And so he decides he's going to go outside and get a little bit of air. Well, he's not paying attention because he's feeling a little weird. And this car comes rushing by him and almost hits him. And before Peter gets hit by the car, you see him glance at his hands real quick. And I guess this is just for visual. I'm not for sure. But it shows his fingertips glowing like a yellow-orange color. And I'm like, oh, okay. They're letting you know something's getting ready to happen with his fingertips. And then the car comes by and he leaps up out of the way and he clings to the side of a building. And the car, of course, has, I can't remember what the remark says, some little stupid remark that they write in there, and drives away. Well, Pete keeps climbing up the wall. He's like, what's going on? He's like, I'm sticking to the wall like an insect. How am I able to do this? He climbs all the way up to the top of the building, and as he's climbing, there's a kid with his mom. He's like, Mommy, look, that man's climbing up the side of a building. And the mom's like, this is the last time I'm taking you to go see a monster movie. So he gets to the top of the building and he grabs a piece of pipe or tubing that's on top of the building and he crushes it. Just easily. He just crushes it with his hands. And then it shows him going down like this wire, real thin kind of wire. And he's just crawling down the wire and he's saying to himself, he's like, wow. He's like, I'm able to scale this wire like a spider would scale a piece of webbing. He's like, something must have happened when that spider bit me. It must have gave me some powers. And he said, this is crazy. I can't believe this is happening. But yeah, he figures out that the bite from the spider has gave him these amazing new powers. And then we see just a few minutes later, he's walking down the street. I guess he's going back home. And he's feeling better, I guess. He sees a sign on the side of the street or like a building or whatever. And it says on it, for $100, if you can last 3 minutes with Crusher Hogan, which is I guess to me it looked like a wrestler, or it could have been a sideshow thing, but to me it looked like a wrestler.
Was that the same name as Macho Man's character?
I don't know if it was the same name or not.
If listeners know, write in.
Yeah, the biggest thing I remember from that one was Bruce Campbell being the announcer on that one. Yeah. But yeah, the sign says $100 if you can last 3 minutes in the ring with Crusher Hogan. And Peter decides, this will be a good test of these new powers I've got. Let's give it a shot. So he goes home. He changes out of his clothes because he's got like a regular, like white long sleeve t-shirt on and like a little sweater vest thing on and stuff. So he switches out, puts different clothes on. And he's like, well, wait a minute. They can't see my face, so I've got to come up with something. So I don't know where he gets it from, but he puts like his mask on. It was like a netting kind of mask or whatever, so they can't see his face. So he goes back and he gets in the ring and he stays in there with Crusher Hogan for 3 minutes, if not longer. He's put him in headlocks and he's got him in like by one arm. He's climbing up the ring post and Crusher's like, whoa, you win. Let me go. Let me go. Yeah, I submit. Let me go. So Peter collects his $100 and he's walking away and a TV producer comes up to him. And he says, hey kid, I can make you a lot of money. I could even get you on the Ed Sullivan Show. Again, listeners, that was a popular show back then. Kind of like Johnny Carson.
It's kind of like Jimmy Fallon.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm using another old reference. Sorry about that. Yeah, there's not really, was it a talk show or was it a...
It was a comedy variety. Like
variety show kind of thing?
Talk show, yeah.
Yeah. So, he gets Peter's attention about that. So Pete goes back home. And this is where we see him making his Spider-Man costume. Okay,
so I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah, man.
In the movie, maybe both the movies, it seems like after the wrestling match, that's instantly when the Uncle Ben thing happens, if I remember right.
I believe you're right about that, yeah.
Whereas this, it takes a lot longer.
It does. It doesn't give you a time frame, but I'm guessing weeks past, maybe months, maybe, I don't know.
It's at least days.
At least days for sure, yeah. At least. So yeah, he's making his Spider-Man costume. And then Aunt May and Uncle Ben walk in and they're like, hey Peter, we got you a telescope. I believe it was. I think got him a telescope or a present or whatever. He's got to hide in his Spider-Man suit out of the way, so there nobody can see it. And he's like, he's thinking to himself, he's like, Uncle Ben and Aunt May, they're the best. I don't ever want them to have to worry about anything. So I think that's why he decided to do this, was try to make money to help them out. So he thinks very highly. He loves Uncle Ben and Aunt May to death. So yeah, you see him making his suit and he's making his web shooters. And, he kind of goes through what am I going to name myself. He's like, Spider-Man. He's like, that sounds good. So where I got my powers from, so why not? And, so he's got his webbing, he tries his webbing, and he says, he shoots it up to the ceiling, and he says that with strong liquid cement at the end of it, I'll be able to pull myself up from anywhere. So I'm like, so was all the webbing made of the liquid cement, I wonder?
I was wondering the same thing. I thought that was a little odd.
Yeah, because he just says liquid cement at the end of it would be strong enough for me to pull myself.
Well, it had to all be unless...
It would have to all be...
Yeah, because once it detaches, he'd have to make more, and you just wouldn't be able to...
Yeah, I know that, good Lord, through the years of Spider-Man, I think whatever his webbing is made of has changed over the years.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it was organic in one version of him, or his web shooters, it was always some kind of different concoction, sticky stuff. And wouldn't it in the animated series, if not the comics as well, it was biodegradable after so many hours? I think it would just...
Yeah.
Just disappear or whatever. Yeah. So he does all that, makes his suit, gets his web shooters, and then we see kind of a montage where he's making his first TV appearance, and he's showing off his abilities to the crowd. We've seen it before, where he's using his web shooters to knock out the flame on the candle, and balancing act, and, strength, and all that stuff like that. And so after he does that, at one show, he goes to the bank and collects his money. How much? We don't know, but we figured, a couple $100 probably, something like that. And he hears a cop yelling, "Stop! Stop!" Peter looks over, and a guy's running away from a police officer. And the police officer hollers at him, "Hey, you buddy!" He's like, "Stop him! Before he gets away, if he gets to the elevator, we'll never be able to catch him." Pete's like, not my job. And just lets the guy run through. He gets the elevator and he's gone. And the cop comes over to him. He's like, hey man, why didn't you help me stop him? You could have tripped him, knocked him down, something. He said, why not? And Pete's like, look, he's like, it's not my job. And he's like, I'm tired of being pushed around and told what to do. I'm like, no, wait a minute, Peter. He was not really telling you. It's kind of like he was asking you for assistance. But, so that's what he tells me. He's like, yeah, it's not my job and I'm tired of being pushed around. He said, and from now on, I'm looking out for numero uno, and that means me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, Peter, if you only knew, man. So several days pass and Peter's coming home either from, school or from one of these, TV shows. And by this time, he has become a sensation of the nation, as it says.
Sensational Spider-Man.
He has become a sensation of the nation. He is the thing to see on television or, in person. So one evening he comes home and he sees there's a lot of police at his house. Well, Aunt May's house, Uncle Ben's house. And he goes up to him and he's like, what's going on? Why's all this police here? What's happened? And they're like, son, we're sorry. Your Uncle Ben got shot and he's died. And Peter's like, well, what happened? How could this happen? He said he surprised a burglar, excuse me. Said he surprised a burglar and the burglar shot him. And they tell Pete that the burglar is held up in an old Acme warehouse on the waterfront. So at least we know 1962 Acme was used in comic books at least, if not before. And automatically you see where Ditko has kind of drew Peter's face. You see like this scowl come over his face. He's determined. He knows what he's got to do. So he runs away and the police is kind of yelling at him like, hey, come back here, come back here. So he goes and he gets his Spider-Man suit on and he goes after the shooter. And it, again, another one of these classic scenes that we know from the history of Spider-Man and different iterations of his origin story. He arrives at the warehouse, and the cops are out there, but the cops don't want to rush into the warehouse because they feel that if they rush in, that the shooter will have, or does actually have the high ground and could probably take them out.
It's Anakin.
Yeah. You had the high ground.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah. That he could actually probably take them out one at a time if they all rushed in like that. So they're waiting. I don't think it says what they're waiting for, but they're waiting to make their move. Well, of course, Spider-Man, he is able to sneak in through a window or an opening in the warehouse. And he sneaks up on the shooter. At first, you just see the shooter in kind of, his face is in shadow and he's got like a jacket and a hat on. And Spider-Man jumps down and he grabs him and he's like, I've got you. He's like, you can't get away. You're not going to be able to hurt anybody ever again. And you see that his face is finally revealed and it is the burglar from the studio that Peter was at beforehand that he didn't stop, that he allowed to run past him and escape. So unfortunately, as we know, Peter's inaction earlier unfortunately caused the death of Uncle Ben. And he is like automatically almost traumatized. He's thinking to himself, he's like, oh my God, he's like, this never would have happened. It's all my fault. Uncle Ben is dead because of me. If I would just took a minute and just stopped this guy and not been selfish and thinking about myself, he said, this never would have happened. Now this bugged me, and I don't know why Ditko did it, but in this moment when he's holding the shooter, he drew pupils on Spider-Man's eyes.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this supposed to be showing his shock, maybe?
I think so.
Or his amazement of recognizing who the shooter is, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Because it took me aback for a second when I seen it. I was like, wait a minute, is there something on Sean's comic? I was like, no, it's Ditko drew the little pupils on there, little black dots on each eye like that.
What I took from it is that he's not actually showing the pupils through the mask.
Oh,
it's just showing him behind the mask.
Under the mask. Yeah. Got you. Okay, I didn't think about it that way. Okay. Makes sense now. So yeah, we're coming to the end. This was a short story. We're coming to the end. Spidey, he webs up the shooter and he leaves him hanging outside, and the police are like, hey, ain't that the guy we were waiting on to go get? Other police officers like, huh, what? And he's hanging upside down, like his arms are behind his back, and he's hanging down. Again, another classic Spider-Man scene of capturing somebody. So he's captured the shooter, and we see him walking away, and it's a very kind of a solemn shot from his back, and he's walking down the street, and it says in the panel, it says that he walks silently away, realizing at last, finally, that with great power, there must also come great responsibility.
I didn't expect that to be in that issue.
Mm-mm.
I figured that came later.
No. And that's the origin of Spider-Man in the comic books. It does say something at the end. I think it says to come back next issue, I believe, to continue the adventure. So this was very similar to the origin of Iron Man. He was in a multiple story kind of book. It wasn't just a solo title kind of thing at the beginning. He would do that later. He would get that later on in the career. So yeah, I mean, we all know the origin pretty much. I mean, it wasn't a surprise really what was going on, but I loved seeing the very first story, the very first version of it, and seeing the artwork, because I've only seen the artwork just, like on my phone in pictures or whatever. To actually have it in my hand and look at it and kind of look at it closely and stuff like that was really cool. I think Ditko did really well. I love the artwork. Again, like I said, we know the story, but I still love the story. I don't know. It's something about that old artwork I love and I miss it. Even though we got great artists nowadays in comics, I don't know. It's still hand drawn, but I know a lot of them do it like on tablets and stuff. So to me, it feels like it's lost a little bit of that magic from where the old artists like Ditko and stuff would do it, probably on actual paper. So, but yeah, I loved it, man. I did. I loved it. I'm assuming it being your book, you loved it as well. What did you think about it?
I've had a on again, off again relationship with Spider-Man in general.
Yeah.
But this, yeah, I didn't realize I was going to love Steve Ditko's artwork as much as I do. I'd put it up there right beside Jack Kirby.
I agree. I totally agree.
This was amazing, especially that cover.
Yeah, the famous cover of him holding a guy in his arms and swinging one-handed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really spot on. The story, like you said, we already knew it. It's kind of like the origin of Batman.
It is, but it's still cool to read that very first version of it, though, because it's slightly changed, I think, over the decades. Not a lot, but slightly.
Well, and that's what I love about going through this in a historical manner. We get to see the differences, especially like in the time frame that it came out in. Because it came out right around the same time as X-Men and all that stuff. Yeah. And we've talked about that.
Like within those first few years, like boom, 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 all these great characters were created.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're a Spider-Man or a history-loving person, then yeah, you need to check this comic out.
Definitely. Add it to that collection with that first appearance of Iron Man that we covered as well. I think those two need to be in your collection. It's not in mine, but, I feel like it needs to be in your collection.
Eminem owns an original one.
Hey, there you go, man.
But if you want to pick this up, what I have is the facsimile, or no, the
it's a reprint, right?
It's a reprint, but it's called the
True Believers.
True Believers one. And every reprint I've seen is run. The cheapest one I could find was $10.
Not bad. I'd put that down for it for sure.
I only paid $1 for that.
Yeah, dude, that ain't bad, no.
But if you want the original,
hit us with them dollar bills, man.
All right, so on mycomicshop.com right now, a 4.0 is running about $34,000, and that's graded. And then a 7.0 is running about $135,000, which ain't that bad considering it's like the key Spider-Man issue.
It's not too terrible. I actually expect it to be a little bit higher, but I mean those are, I guess, lower grades, but still not terrible grades though.
And the 7, I mean, I guess I would assume that a 9 would run you probably about $300,000.
Probably, yeah. I'd say. I would assume that the age that comic is, it wouldn't be easy to find one at that high of a grade unless somebody really took care of it, growing up as a child or something, maybe.
Yeah, those would be the higher.
Yeah, I would assume at your best moment you would probably find like a 7 or a 6 grade, probably something maybe like that.
Yeah.
I would think.
Because they didn't keep them back then.
No, kids roll them up, put them in their back pockets. Yeah, that's for sure. They trade them around or whatever.
Well, even when I was watching that interview with Steve Ditko's brother and his nephew, they pulled out this collection of like comic art, like from the 40s and 50s that Steve Ditko had cut out of characters.
Oh, okay.
So he had like some of the 40s Batmans, like just cut out the Batman right there. I was like, oh no.
Oh man, wow, okay.
But I guess that's how he learned to draw, is like,
Yeah,
and really got him into comics.
probably for sure. Yeah.
Because apparently his dad was into comics, his brother was into comics, and they were like really close as a family, and they just kind of, that was one of the things they did.
Okay. Now, I guess I should have asked this earlier. How long did he stay on the comic? Did it say?
I didn't look that up. I know Stan Lee by the 15th issue, he was kind of like, whatever, you know.
And you give Jim Lee shit for that.
he was still handing scripts in, but, you know, at that point, whoever the artist was just kind of doing what they wanted. And
got you.
He just fill in words. You know?
Okay.
Well, at least he made it past 7 issues. Jim Lee can't do that.
True.
You chose the way of the hero. And they found you amusing for a while, the people of this city. But the one thing they love more than a hero is to see a hero fail, fall, die trying. In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you. Why bother?
I think that's good. Do we have any questions?
Oh, I have a question.
Oh, you have a question.
Earlier we discussed about his take on credit and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Do you think the artist should get more credit where they're coming up with what the character looks like? They're basically giving them everything but the descriptions in the comic. Say, like, I come to you with a character, and I'm like, this is what I'm thinking as a character.
And I come up with the visual representation of it. No, I don't think the art...
That's tricky, because if you didn't have the artist, all you would have is...
Yeah, but if you didn't have the description from the writer, though, then... No, I don't think one... I don't think I would feel right one having more than the other. I feel like it should be an equal amount of credit, because you have the writer, or the writer who comes up with the scripts, who comes up with the story, but then you have the artist who gives you the visual, what the character looks like, and with one or the other, you're not going to have a complete representation of the character or know about it. So I don't think either one should have more credit than the other, because they both came together to create a character. They needed each other to come up with that character, I think. I don't think one should get more than the other. No. I don't. That's just me, though.
So can you name the other creator of Batman?
No.
Oh.
Well, didn't Bob do both? Draw it and write it? No, didn't he?
No.
Wasn't there was something about the Joker that fella didn't get credit for the longest time, I believe. He came up with the Joker.
I think that was a big thing with, I don't know if Bob Kane was still on at that point, but at least with Batman, there's been a few examples of that.
Examples. Like, I remember something about, that's the one thing I can remember, was they say something about the gentleman that come up with he was either the artist that drew it or actual person that came up with the Joker character. Something about, for the longest time, he did not get credit for it. I think Kane just took all credit for everything, I believe, or something like that. I could be wrong, but...
Well, when we get to Detective Comics 27, I'll do some research.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it should be both, 50-50. I don't think one should be more than the other, I don't think.
All right. As far as other people's questions go, I asked a question on our Facebook, what people's introductions to Spider-Man was, and I believe you got some answers as well.
I do. Yeah, go ahead through yours, man. I'll look mine up real quick.
Okay, so this comes in from Sam. His introduction, Spider-Man and the Amazing Friends, 1981. Wally Miles says same. Stephen Everett says my first introduction was on a PBS show called The Electric Company.
I remember that show, but I don't remember Spider-Man.
Yeah, I don't know if he was trolling me or if that's legit. Our girl Autumn says that she had some comics that were hand-me-downs when I was too little to even read, and I know I had some Spider-Man in there. But my first true experience with a character I can vividly remember was the PS1 game.
Okay.
That kind of
surprised me. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Okay.
This comes in from Frankie. The Amazing Spider-Man 1979 comic series, Return of Dr. Octopus.
Okay.
It was the first comic book that my former stepfather gave me as a kid. And I also love all the cartoon shows.
I mean, it's a good one to get introduced to. Doc Ock coming back, so.
Okay. Chris Long says I still have the comic book at home. I can't remember the title, but I've had it for over 40 years.
Sweet.
Bob Lanza says the Amazing Spider-Man TV series. He was 6 or 7 years old.
Okay.
Oh, well, Chris found the issue. It's the Amazing Spider-Man number 60.
Number 60, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
Sean McElroy says 1994 animated series.
I figured that would be quite a few people's introductions.
All right, and yours?
Yeah, I've got a couple here on my personal Facebook page. Cody Calamity says, introduction to Spider-Man for me was the Spider-Man comics from around the early to mid-90s. The first Spider-Man comic I owned was Amazing Spider-Man Hit and Run number 3 from, he believed, 1992. He said that's also still, to this day, his favorite Spider-Man stuff. I don't really know what the Hit and Run story was, but... Jeff Campbell says, I probably knew about him before then, but my first memories of Spider-Man are probably from the cartoon Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, which that's mine. That was my answer on that one. I love all things Spider-Man, but Tom Holland is probably my favorite version of Spider-Man.
He's a good one.
Mickey Smith from B Action and Nerd Initiative said that he read The Amazing Spider-Man number 350 in 4th grade and fell in love with Spider-Man and Dr. Doom. And it's a great cover. It is. You got Doom in behind Spidey, and Spidey's doing kind of the traditional kind of pose, that we would know him as, swinging through the air. But yeah, 350. Wow. So, yeah, we appreciate everybody responding to that question. Mine, like I said, my first introduction was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends from the 80s cartoon series. And my favorite version, would be Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara. I just love that version. Peter's cool, but I don't know. I like that version more. And if I have to say visually, the Peter Parker version, and I told you this off mic, I always liked him with the webbing under his armpits.
See, I don't.
I guess it was maybe helped him glide. I don't remember, but I don't think it was in the Spider-Man Amazing Friends cartoon. I don't think it was. I might be, I'm not remembering that 100%, but I remember I liked the webbing. I think in this book it had the webbing.
Yeah, it did.
Under his armpit. Yeah. So whenever they got rid of it, and I know they brought it back at some point too, and then got rid of it again.
I don't mind if it was like something that just kind of came out like when you need it, but like all the time.
The time? Yeah.
It just it takes away from the suit to me.
What about you, man? What's yours?
Actually, my first comic ever that I ever looked at was Spider-Man 2099 issue 25. But my first real introduction was the anime series, the 94 anime series.
That's a great show. I remember.
That was like the first CGI intro I ever seen.
Yeah. I remember the first episode aired on Fox. I don't know the day, but I know it was at night, at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
It was a big deal. They like advertised it.
And I'm sitting there, and say that was 94, so I was, depending on when in 94, I was either 13 or 14 years old. And I remember sitting in the den, and Fox was like, yeah, the new Spider-Man animated series, first episode tonight. I'm like, what the hell is it going on at nighttime instead of Saturday morning? But it did.
Dark, yeah.
It was. First episode was a lizard. And in the sewers fighting and stuff like that. But I remember it was on Fox at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. I guess it was a weekday. But I remember that. I'm just, because that stands out to me. That was the only cartoon I ever remember like airing first time at nighttime, prime time when the adults were watching TV and the kids was off doing something else. Yep. It was a great cartoon. I think it felt like the X-Men. I think it fell off toward the tail end a little bit, but those first few seasons was amazing. Oh yeah, the animation was great, the voice acting was great, the stories was great. So I'd put it not quite Batman animated series, but probably next to it. It's definitely up in there, like at top 3, top 5 cartoons of the 90s for sure. Hell yeah. Yeah. Got anything else, man? No, I think you got something though. Yeah, real quick, before we end this, I want to say I don't want to say we would like to share a few words, about a comic book writer that we lost recently, Mr. Peter David. And Peter David, for me personally, like I said, he created my favorite version of Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara. Well, he co-created it with the artist. And he has had a super, super career in comic books, that dates back, at least the 80s when he really got into writing, but he worked for Marvel, I think like in the 60s or whatever, in the offices and stuff, but he's won multiple awards. He's won an Eisner Award, Wizard Fan Award, the Glad Media Award, and he's just wrote so much. And one of the things he's well known for, and he even admitted himself that it was his greatest achievement, was writing The Incredible Hulk for 12 years. For 12 years, he wrote The Incredible Hulk.
It's pretty impressive.
Dude, it's crazy. Well, and it was at the time that nobody really wanted to write the Incredible Hulk. It wasn't doing that well. And I believe I told you that at some point it actually had got canceled, and Hulk was just showing up in like some of those anthology kind of comics for a while or whatever. And then he got offered the book because nobody else wanted it. And he wrote it for, like I said, for 12 years. He's also known for writing the first appearance of the Thunderbolts. He wrote in the X Factor comic.
Oh.
The first same-sex relationship between Shatterstar and, Richter, I believe was the other character's name. He wrote for Green Lantern a little bit in 1988. So yeah, and he also is the one who came up with Aquaman's hook hand look in 1994. He jumped to DC and worked on that. So yeah, Mr. David has got a prolific career in comic books. He's done so much. I've only barely touched his stuff with just reading the Spider-Man 2099 stuff, but we just wanted to mention him. He was a landmark in comic books, a great writer, a multi-award-winning writer for comics. He also wrote some Star Trek novels. He's wrote Supergirl stories, Young Justice. He's done a lot of television scripts back in his time. So yeah, he'll sorely be missed in the comic book world, and by many fans of many characters and many comic books. So you'll be missed, Peter. We miss you.
Yeah, I didn't realize till you brought his name up, and I looked him up. I'm like, man, I've got a lot of comics by him.
Yeah.
Especially like I've got some Spider-Mans that are really good, and I've got that Deadpool series I told you about, The Art of War.
Art of War, I've got that as well, yeah.
But my main thing is his run on X Factor. Mm-hmm. Like, everything he touched there was awesome. Like, those are some of my favorite X-Men stories, period. Like, with the multiple man character, Polaris, and even Quicksilver showed up in there, and there was some good stories with him.
And he was on it for several years, if I remember right.
He was on the original run, and I've got like 3 other runs he's been part of. So.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a chance I need to look further from this after the recording, but I may have more of his stuff than I know of, but I do know 100% sure that I do have his Spider-Man 2099 because I love it. And he did come back, if I'm not mistaken, several years ago and do a new Spider-Man 2099 comic. And it was still Miguel O'Hara, but he was like continuing his story. He had come to present time, and him and Peter actually worked together and stuff. It's I liked it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as the original. I don't know. I just love it. And he's a stand-up guy, I think, too, because if anybody remembers the 2099 era of Marvel, Spider-Man ran for 46 issues. He worked on it all the way up to issue 44, and he left it because he felt that the editor or one of the higher-ups that was working on the 2099 brand was done wrong by Marvel when they fired him and let him go. And Peter's like, you know what? Hell with it. I'm done. Granted, Spider-Man did get canceled 2 issues later, but I feel like he was a stand-up guy. He believed in the editor. He believed in what he was doing for that section of Marvel at that time. So he's like, you know what? In solidarity, I'm leaving the book. But those 44 issues that he wrote, I don't remember every one of them, but what I do remember were great stories. The artist, and I apologize, I forgot his name. His art is amazing in that comic book. I think he might have left as well because I feel like 45 and 46 look different. So it might have been a different artist as well. So yeah. Yeah, it was a shock and a sad moment when the news came across a lot of the different media stuff that he had passed away like that, but he had been sick for a little while. So, he's up there with Stan Lee now, so I'm sure they're rocking out some Spider-Man stories together.
I'm sure Stanley's got the same 10 stories he tells over and over
Stanley's like, hey, Peter, let me tell you about that time Miguel O'Hara, So, yeah, guys, we hope you enjoyed our 25th episode just as much as we enjoyed recording it. And we thank you guys so much for hanging with us for this coming up on our 1 year anniversary within a month. We really appreciate all the feedback that we've got, the comments, the experiences that we've been able to have these past couple months. Me and Sean both have been able to guest star on other podcasts, and we've been able to get ourselves out there a little bit more, and we hope we brought happiness to you guys and some enjoyment, and we hope for more. We hope for more engagement and more comments and everything else like that. So if you want to reach us, we have Facebook, we have an Instagram, we have a Discord, which is free. We also have an email, geekswithbeardspod@gmail.com. Send us your comments, send us your criticisms. And we're also on almost all the major platforms, podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Podbean, whatever else is out there. Please, if you don't mind, give us a 5-star rating. If you don't feel like we deserve a 5-star, give us what you believe we deserve and let us know why. Let us know what you think about our show, what we can do and improve it better. Or if we're doing a great job, just say, hey, you guys are doing a great job. Keep up the good work. We also have a YouTube channel that I mentioned before that we do toy reviews, short toy reviews, 7-10 minute toy reviews of different toys from different eras. Of course, our audio podcast is also on there. And, I think it's about it, I believe, man, except for what we're going to be doing next time. And next time we will be covering, and this is a cool little thing that I found, at the flea market not too long ago. We are going to be covering the 2 issues that were made in 1988 and 89 of Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. And if any of you 80s kids remember, it used to be a TV show. It was a live-action TV show, kind of reminiscent of Power Rangers, that had a short-lived run of 22 episodes and a short-lived toy run as well. But the toys were cool because we'll talk more about it on the episode, but it kind of did a laser gun, light ray kind of interactivity with the TV show and stuff. So, yeah, we're going to be covering that on our next episode, and we hope you all tune in for that. And until next time, we have been the Geeks with Beard podcast. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Up in the sky, look! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's
Geeks with Beards. Podcast.